You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Before we get to life advice, got to share with you another bench save at Equinox recently. Saw this one coming from a mile away. So here's the situation. I'm getting loose, just doing a little incline on the Smith machine, which I know, save your jokes, but when you get a little bit older and you go heavy on the normal incline, you feel like stuff's just going to rip out of the socket. I don't know. It's just an uncomfortable angle for me. So sometimes I do Smith and warm up if I want to go heavier. So I'm sitting and I'm watching a guy, and he's got twin fives on the flat bench. So 45 for the bar, a 5 and a 5 on one side, and then a 5 and a 5 on the other. So we're up to 65 pounds, and collars, double collars, just in case those fives get a little wobbly.
It's like me in high school. Let's go.
Yeah, and again, this is not a judgment zone here. This is what our stance is very clear on this. Our mission state. If you're in there and you're doing the work, nobody should be giving you shit about anything. So I was watching him, and he was banging them out. He may have done 12 sets. And at one point, he's like, okay, this is light for me. I don't know what he does for a living. He had an epic home over, but his girlfriend was there too. And I don't know if it's my old lifeguarding days, just scanning the horizon.
Something was amiss.
Something. And I watch him, and I go, okay, so this guy's banging out 12 reps of 65 here, and he's not on the 4-set program. This guy he's going to failure. He's going to be there all day. And then he said, fuck it, I'm going to throw on a couple 25s. So I was like, whoa, he's going from 65 to 115. Like, this guy's really going for it. I was like, okay, so maybe that's just an intense warm-up. He gets 80 so reps of 65 out, and he's like, all right, now let's start packing on the mass. And he brought it off and kind of held it, and that's when reality kicked in as he was holding it locked out over his chest.
Maintaining.
Yeah, and he's like, this isn't going to go good. But my man went for that rep, and that thing was never coming off of him. He'd still be there right now. And so I don't know why I did this asshole action hero move, but I got up and threw my hat down. Like that needed to happen. And then I did step right over his chest, Iverson Ty Lue style, and then while I'm straddling him over his
so
body.
You're facing him.
Facing him. My groin is about his stomach area, and I one-armed it off of him.
Oh, boy.
And threw it back on the rack.
Did you have to one-arm it and show him off? I feel like you one-upped him there a little bit.
I didn't go into it saying I'm going to one-arm this guy. But it was going bad. And I was like, and I wished somebody else, I don't know why other guys don't notice it, but I wish somebody else had seen it. It was pretty slow, because I would have locked eyes with somebody else that would have been like, yeah, that was the most predictable thing that was ever going to happen today in the state of California. So I one-arm it off him, rack it again, and I give him a, hey. And he was a bit like, but he was great about it. And I was like, hey, man, we got you, positive. Because it's a horrible, horrible feeling. I had it happen to me when I was younger. You feel like the biggest fucking loser. Some guy you don't know has to help it off of you. Yeah. And, I'll tell you what, he went right back to twin fives, and I think he repped out another 50. So he found his comfort zone.
You tell him, like, hey, next time you're feeling disadventurous again, just like call me over. Don't go at it solo.
No.
Be a hero.
No, I didn't want to do it. But the problem is there's still the one guy that's the strongest guy in the gym. Like, easily reps 405, reps it. And he's just a really strong motherfucker. And he asked me to help him one day, and it's when I thought I had a sports hernia. So anything I did that I pulled up in front of me felt like my groin was ripping apart. And so I was like, hey, I can't help you. This is the one thing I can't do. And he kind of gave me a look like, all right.
I think you're better than me.
Yeah, like, oh, like, I'm stronger than you. You know that. Like, because I'm stronger than you don't want to spot me? And I'm thinking, like, no.
You don't want to help me get stronger than I already am?
Yeah. was like, no way. I wanted to help. I wanted to be there for that. I would have been like even lying to you on the last one going, no, dude, I barely touched it. Barely touched it. Let's get beers later. We could talk about how I barely touched it. Do we have something else that we want to do? Do we just do 5 minutes on Chet Holmgren? Because I watched both of the tournament games back-to-back days. His first 8 minutes against San Francisco, he plays drop coverage, shows on the screen, drops defensively perfectly. A guy went left side, up and under to bring it on the right side. He blocked it with his other hand after contesting it with his left hand. He then did a spin through the lane with the ball off a dribble. So like not a full 360 dunk. Then paused on a lane dive, dunked, then pulled up, hit like an NBA 3, form was perfect, then jumped a passing lane and led the fast break. We all know his body is weird. And I would admit there's a little hunched overness to him, which isn't really a word, that I'm kind of like, why does he kind of move that way? But Cerruti, I will pass the mic to you. Your Chet Holmgren position today in early March is?
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who Magic are going to be in the mix, dude. They're probably going to have the worst record. So there's a good chance they end up with the first pick. There's a good chance that they have to make this decision. I've dived into the Chet thing a little bit. Definitely have watched some highlights and been like, wow, this guy's super skinny. He checks off just about every like red flag box, right? Skinny white guy from Gonzaga, the Porzingis comp. What is he, a center? Is it whatever? But every time he fills up the stat sheet, he's good defensively. And I'm comparing to other guys in the class too. And I go, if you're talking about Jabari, I've seen stats about how he's got basically like he doesn't dribble. He doesn't dribble at all. He's not a playmaker. I know he's good defensively, and his comp is like Rashard Lewis. I just don't know. Do you take that guy with the first pick? So I leaning towards Chet, filling up the stat sheet. I know the body's weird. He also looks like a Magic player. He just I can just see him in a Magic jersey, which probably might mean he's a bust. But I lean towards Chet just because I just don't know that anybody in this class does all the shit that he does. And I'll deal with the body situation and hope he could just figure out playing center, because I think that guy has obviously more upside than anybody in the draft. And I just don't know. I've heard a lot of smart guys talk about Jabari and why they like him. I know Tate Frazier loves him, Kyle's guy. But I don't know. I just worry about guys that can't play make if I'm taking that guy with the first pick. So I'm leaning Chet right now. I'm hard in Chet's corner for the first pick right now.
Phrasing. I can't believe the Magic have this bad a record.
It's great because they're actually fun to watch, but they're terrible. So it's the best of both worlds. I mean, now this is hopefully the last year, but if you get Chet, add it to that core, like that team is ready to go. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be like a winning playoff series next year, but like that's a squad if they get a guy like Chet in there. And I think he's a good fit for them too, man. I think he is, because they don't need another ball handler. I mean, maybe you could argue that Jabari would be good for the Magic because he doesn't need the ball in his hands and he can impact plays that way. But
Jabari's going to be good anywhere he goes. All right, like I think Jabari is the surest thing, but I don't think it's crazy to suggest that Chet has the highest ceiling. But
no,
it'd be really hard for me as a GM if I had the number one pick going, if you get the Chet thing wrong, it's going to be because, hey, this guy fucking broke down. And it's my long-standing theory. I think some of these bodies have gotten too big for how amazing they move. And that's why we have more injuries with some of these bigger dudes. But I also think Jabari checks a lot of boxes. And honestly, the most frustrating part of his game is Auburn's guards ignoring him for long stretches.
That's college hoops, though. So there you go.
And then you watch Banchero against, despite the North Carolina game where they fell apart there at the end. I mean, he had stretches in that game where I can't wait for this draft. And I've talked to people that have said, hey, after number one, it's Ivy 2. And I'm just like, all right.
Do you think it's team dependent? Do you think there's going to be a consensus? Do you think it'll be Chet once we get there? Or do you think based on whether the Magic, the Pistons, Detroit, or I should say Houston, do you think it's going to be dependent on who has the first pick for who goes number one?
A little bit, but I do think the reason people get mad about the mistakes, I think a lot of times, look, mistakes are going to happen in the draft. But what I'd say is that it's so hard to get somebody really special as it is, that there are teams that are going to go, yeah, but we know who this guy is, and this guy's really good, and we love this guy. But if Chet were to just put it all together, and he's going to fill out, it's just science, he's going to fill out. Like, this is the guy that can be like an absolute game changer. And that's why I would bet, I don't know. I was going to do it the other day. I was going to just start because, it's so hard to get, hey, can you send me your top 5 and tell me about one or tell me all this stuff? I don't know. It's still too early for me.
The reverse of that, though, is true, Ryan, right, too, though, because, if he busts, you go, oh, yeah, body type, like I said, all the red flags that I pointed out before. Like, I feel like either way, you can convince yourself once we actually know if he's good or not that, oh, this was a great pick or no, it was a bad pick based on what the evidence is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. I mean, that's kind of like the Porzingis thing. The reason why he went fourth, even though other teams loved him, it's like, okay, but if I take Porzingis and he sucks, it's like, how could you take him? Okay, all right, life advice, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Couple follow-ups here. Think that are worth sharing with the community. The guy who left the 8-minute sex voicemail, he got the loan. He got the loan.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
Never a doubt.
Matt said it was never brought up, which he knows that's 100% chance that the guy listened to it and then proved the loan. That was his theory. Because it was never discussed, because that means he listened. Another thing, we had 1 million people follow up. Millions, a lot. Probably not 1 million, Kyle, but 1 million people follow up about the guy who was pissed about getting carded at 31 years old, I believe, and he had a couple kids with him. A lot of people from the service industry chiming in saying, fuck that guy. They were upset. They were upset about me not understanding some of the bylaws. And I'll tell you, like, I've never worked. That's right. Yeah. I've never worked for a chain. And I'm probably a little too influenced of the time of working, mostly my years as a college bar guy. Although I did have a couple summers on Martha's Vineyard, and it was incredibly strict. Like, we had to be really, really strict about it. So I should have thought of it that way a little bit. But there were a lot of servers that go, hey, man, check it out. Like, we have, whether they're called spotters or just people that come with a fake ID on purpose. One guy said there's a DEA people that come through his like tourist attraction
like a secret
area.
shopper or something.
And then on top of that, if you're with one of these brands, like Applebee's doesn't fuck around, which I think everybody knew anyway, right? But when you go to these places, like, that's the whole point. It's like they don't want to get busted. And if they get busted, the liquor license. And then they said that some servers even get arrested. I mean, that would have been
Jesus.
Like the first one I read, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. And then I kept reading more and more of them that Kyle had sent in saying, no, like there's somebody who got arrested here. Or somebody got arrested at this other bar for serving somebody underage with a fake ID that was all a setup just to try to bust the place, because there's people like, we had liquor inspectors and stuff, but everybody knew she went out once a month on Friday and didn't show up until 11. And then sometimes she drank. So, it wasn't, she would like bust
inspecting the liquor.
Yeah. She would bust one place and then I don't
call it a day.
She must have had like a cousin in town hall or something like that. So it wasn't the most,
what a great
in.
gig. You get to hang out in bars all day and then maybe bust them, or maybe just be cool.
We got in trouble at our house once. She came by and she told us how she mows her lawn on her tractor naked. So, we didn't really know where it was going. Yeah. But we were like, so does this mean, she was like, just have quieter parties, you idiots. Like, all right, no problem. Okay. So, all right, good follow-up stuff there. We got a couple here. Brother-in-law with sticky fingers, 5'9", 180. On most Sundays, we go to my wife's parents' house for cookouts and drinks. It's usually a great time. Yard games. The kids play with their cousins, so on. I love a good cousin hang. I miss those. You know what I mean? Everybody's deep with the roster of cousins. My siblings and I, we can be like one kid. All right. We like craft beer, but her parents don't, so we usually bring our own. One of my wife's brothers, let's call him Frank. He's usually there. He's a beer drinker, too. The problem is it's always our beer. Some context on Frank. He's a good guy, but he's definitely weird about money. He's in finance and earns almost twice as much as my wife and I. He's in his mid-20s, has little debt. He's already maxing out his retirement savings each year. All good things, just atypical for his age. When I read that one, I went, okay, that's good. Good for you. Max out. Get those IRAs started, kids. Early 20s. Be fucking laughing at your buddies. It's just accruing wealth. All right. He only heats his house to 58 degrees in the winter. All right. That we've now pivoted to a different level.
That's different.
I love
All right. He'll refuse to run an errand down the street because he doesn't, quote, want to put miles on his paid off truck. So this isn't even a lease situation. Paid off truck. I remember there was a girl at ESPN, very attractive. And she was like, do you want to go to this thing in New York City with me? And I was like, you know what? I don't really like doing this after some experience dating in-house, should we say. It's not always a great time. It's not so much the dating. It's when you're not dating and you still work together. But I thought, you know what? I go, I'll head into the city to this event with the person. Picked her up, drove her in. didn't go anywhere, and somebody was like, she was over her miles and had to return her lease. And I was like, wow.
Ouch.
Wow.
Fucking ouch.
It's incredible.
Wow. Incredible. Again, my expectations were very, very low. But I was like, this is aggressive. Hey, do you want to go to this thing? Do you want to drive to the city together? Done. No problem. Drop off. All right. See you around the shop. Somebody's like, yeah, her lease was due. She didn't want to pay for the extra miles. Okay. All right. So to sum it up in the emailer, he sees everything in dollar signs. It's happened repeatedly. We'll bring a 6-pack and he'll help himself to a few. So we started just bringing 2 or 4 for us, but he still drinks a couple. He never asks. When my wife asked him to bring his own drinks, he did, but he still drank ours instead. Instead of the light beer that he brought. Jesus, this guy sucks. The 58 degrees thing, once I read that, I'm totally on your side. On another occasion, when she confronted him for drinking 3 of our 4 beers, he got defensive, citing a time when he gave us a few logs for a campfire.
Good trade.
Fuck you, Frank.
What's a cord of wood going for these days?
That's probably what he said, too.
I imagine it's, with the lumber prices, you've been tracking that stuff. I hope,
Holy shit.
our guy says in parentheses, I'm not the snobby guy that hoards beer. If someone asks, I'll gladly share with him. He doesn't, and it's starting to affect how much I enjoy the rest of the night. I'm stuck. I don't want to be possessive or overreact to something that's small in the grand scheme of things, but it happens so often that I think something needs to change. Should we stop bringing our drinks and just do sober cookouts? Some people can't handle stuff with the family sober. If you're my family, nobody drinks at any of the things. Like, it blows my mind when I'll be like, hey, what went on at Easter? He's like, oh, I got hammered and screamed at my uncle. I think that's normal. It blows my mind to think of my immediate family when we did see each other to say, like, hey, what happened? I'd be like, oh, my brother blacked out, fucking screamed at my sister. Like, it's an impossibility. So it sounds like you're like, hey, I could just show up and not bring drinks Sunday, sober cookout. Sounds like you can handle that. Other people can't. I would think it's fine. Should we stop bringing our drinks? And all right, we already covered that one. Good stuff here. Should we continue ignoring, knowing it isn't worth starting family drama? Should we throw down? I have the pounds and reach, but he has the quickness. That's why he pointed out, oh, wait, excuse me. This changes the entire email. His brother-in-law is 591.80. Our emailer is 63210.
Get her done.
Normally, I would say, hey, you're going to go with the brother. It's your sister, or excuse me, it's your wife's brother here.
He's older, right?
Is it worth it? Yeah.
He's got to be. He said mid-20s. He's got to be older.
Yeah, he said the brother-in-law is mid-20s. I'm guessing this guy's a little older.
Yeah.
I would do something, and I would do it once, and I would make a show of it. I wouldn't fight, okay? But I would make a show of it. Like, I would hook up a Yeti cooler that's one of those 6-pack ones, and I'd put a sign on the front of it saying, you and your wife's name is beer. And just do an absolute, like, mental hazing fuck you to him in front of everybody else, because he's wrong. There's no one that's listening to this right now that's like, nah, I can kind of see his point. All right. He's bringing his own cheap beer so he can drink your expensive beer. This guy is so fucked about the money thing that he's leaving going, I came in with a $6 investment, had 3 IPAs. Those are about $18 at a pub. I just made $12 in my head on that transaction. I'm up. And he's getting off on that. That's how fucked up super, super cheap people are about this stuff. And we all have friends that do it. The bottle service in your 20s and 30s, and if you haven't figured out your life, 40s, where you're like, wait, somebody didn't kick in. And the guy who didn't kick in knows he didn't kick in, but he's kind of thinking like, wait, we got this amazing thing. I didn't even have to throw in a couple $100. Then you're thinking like, hey, this is per diem. It's free money. I'm going to get a hoodie at the gift shop. I'm going to do something at the airport I wouldn't normally do. I'm going to buy some AirPods, So this guy needs to be humiliated is strong, but there needs to be a reckoning because he's an asshole. He's an asshole. And again, if this helps, have him listen to this part of the podcast. He's wrong. He's wrong. You don't get to go through life like you want to be cheap and max out everything in your life that affects you. Go ahead. It's admirable. More of us should do it. But when you start to do it where you're like ahead of the game by fucking over somebody else and it's your family, you're right to be annoyed because the annoyance chips are stacking up to the point you had to write us this email. I would do something where maybe you put him in a cooler and you stand next to it. When he comes over to grab one, you just shout his name out. Be like, hey, he's grabbing one of our beers. That's one. Be like, did you bring any? Oh, you didn't bring it. And you can maybe laugh about it. Maybe it's a joke, but it isn't a joke, is it? No. Deep down, this isn't a joke. So, all right, I've spoken enough. Kyle.
I was going to do that. First of all, it's not that thing where it's like, I don't know, is my wife going to give me the eyes? Like, his wife has already brought it up. Like, you're already miles ahead of the part where you're even wondering if you should do something. The question is, what the fuck are you going to do? Because she's already brought it up to him multiple times and he's gotten defensive. So it's not like she's like, we don't ever tell.
No, you got to do something.
Frank, no.
You got to make it awkward.
It's not that situation where it's like, oh, nobody tells Frank no. Like, it's not that. She's already been like, Frank, what the fuck are you doing? So I thought it would be almost easy if you like name tagged his beer. It's like, all right, we brought a sixer. We figured we could spare one for Frank. So everyone, this one's Frank's beer or something like, you could put like a name tag on it or like the one with the marker on it. We had to write Frank's name on his beer. He just has trouble remembering which ones he brought. So we budgeted one for Frank too. Like it's almost easier to do that as well. I think you have to do something. And yeah, it's got to be, he's the butt of the joke. It's not a terribly mean joke, but everybody gets it. So I think yeah, any version of that is good.
Yeah, he's that guy that, like, especially because he's in his mid-20s, as you were saying. So like sometimes those guys, like, especially if you don't grow up with money, like you're still kind of like, even if you have money when you're 20s, like you're still like kind of like saving stuff. And you don't want to overextend yourself. It's just kind of a habit that you're in. But he seems like the guy who's like, I have to win every transaction guy, which if you have one of those guys in your friend group when it's like nickel and diamond bills and trying to like make money off of your other friends' bills and going out to dinner and stuff like that, that guy is a shitty human being and absolutely needs to be put in his place. So I'm with you guys. You got to confront him. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. It's more just like this guy needs to be knocked down a rung more than it is like about the money. So I would say find a way to, like, I'm wondering, like, what's he bringing? He's probably bringing like Keystone Light to the party. Like, what if you just didn't buy any beer and see what he did? Does he drink his own beer?
To bring his own cheap beer to show that he's like, no, I'm good, but now I'm going to drink the better stuff. Red flags all over the place here. Right? I mean, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to answer that or
you should use the bring beer to show what kind of cool beer you like, not to be like, well, here's some beer. You should,
or you could bring like the worst
shoes.
How about this move? The worst beer.
Steel Reserve.
Go below what he's
Red
doing.
Label. Red Dog.
Natty Light.
Red Dog, excuse me. Red Dog.
Now non-alcoholic.
Oh, duels?
Bring some old duels to the party. Yeah, let's go.
Heineken 0.0.
Like, yeah, man, help yourself.
Yeah, does he know? I wonder if he like knows the specific IPAs or if he doesn't care. Like, tell him, maybe you buy him like a 6-pack of something that's non-alcoholic and tell him it's like this really cool IPA and see how he reacts.
Or the darkest wheat beer, just like cottage cheese. Yeah.
Yeah.
Newcastle. Some honey cinnamon thing that they love in Germany that we don't quite get, but when you're over there, it tastes good. All right. Okay. We don't have another life advice. We have something far more important. Kyle, Super Bowl fraud. All right. Our guy's writing in. He said 6'7", 225. He knows who the Frolic Room fraudster is.
Oh, nice.
Our guy is a bartender. So we haven't said the guy's name. People have gotten the name right. We've had a lot of email. People figured out who this person was. So he defrauded investors in New York in the 80s and 90s and changed his name around 2001, and then did the same thing in Maryland. He then got 6.5 years of jail time in 2007 for a Ponzi scheme. Here's a link to the article. I can't find the picture anywhere. It's like he was able to scrub completely off the internet. If you want to send me a picture of him in one of your bars, I can confirm the age. Anyway, he goes, here's the point. In 2005, 2007, that time frame, he goes, I worked at a restaurant. I'm just not going to name it. You know what I mean? We've already shared enough here. Goes, and this quote art dealer would come in every day, literally every day, and pound 4 glasses of wine, then leave saying he had meetings with investors or clients. Normally he'd come in at 11 a.m. when we opened, hang out for an hour, then sometimes come back later. He'd buddy up to all the bartenders and servers and hung out with other alcoholics that work and drink there. He always tipped really well because we would only charge for 1 glass of wine, $10 check, $30 tip. So he could have run over someone in the parking lot. We wouldn't have cared as long as he kept tipping in cash. All right. I know some of you may not love that. I love the honesty with it. Okay. So he always paid in cash every single time, not one credit card in 2 years. Credit cards, 2005, 2007, they were around. They were around. All right. So we're all degenerate. So we get off work and he'd sidle up to our group and drink with us for hours. He was a smooth talker and seemed knowledgeable at different subjects. After hearing you describe him, Kyle, his behavior and mannerisms, I immediately thought it was this guy.
Wow.
He passed himself off as a high-class art dealer investor, but he really just seemed like a lonely weirdo that wanted friends. Again,
Yes.
we were able to look past this oddness because he was funding our habits with his
Nice.
cash tips, and we didn't know that we were indirectly taking grandma's 401k. So I know there'll be a lot of judgment about this email. Just spare it. You got it. This guy's not trying to say he sounds awesome with it. He was younger. He was bartending, and this guy tipped a lot. All right. He goes, we stopped seeing him in 2007 and wondered what happened. He just vanished, a ghost. A couple months afterwards, we heard he'd been arrested and was awaiting sentencing. And then we saw him in the newspapers. And he goes, one of the bartenders actually visited him in prison.
Wow.
So that's your guy.
That's
Any
our guy.
Any word on him?
He hasn't been in. He even stopped going into some of the surrounding bars. But I mean, I was just in there a couple days ago, and my guy's still behind the bar. Shout out to Blade. He still gets pictures. He's like, oh, there he is. He was on the street today, and we all have a good laugh. And we'll probably not see him. And he stopped going to the block, the bars in a few block radius. But he's still around. I think he still lives around. So I really don't know how this is going to end.
I know how it's probably going to end, but maybe not with the Frolic room specifically.
Yeah, I know somebody actually did give him some money, and we didn't even want to know how much it was, but we know.
Oh no, really?
But it wasn't for Super Bowl, it was for something else. And so I think there's like there's a PI involved, like, and there's like maybe some people trying to, I think the cops were called and they were like, it's not enough money for us to really do anything. So I think they're trying to there's like stuff in the works, but I mean, who knows?
That's not great.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. I told you guys I saw the Not Great Bob actor, right?
We talking about Bob?
Recently?
Or
yeah, the guy that plays Bob.
Oh wow. Nice. Did you
It
say
took a
anything?
lot.
Oh, it took
How
a
annoyed
lot
do you
to
think
not.
he is about it? Like every time somebody sees him, they say that exact line. He's probably pretty annoyed by that at this point in his life.
Yeah, I would think
Everyone's
somebody
walking up to
else
him like, do it, guy, do it, do the thing.
Yeah, but he doesn't do the thing. Pete Campbell says
That's
it
true.
to
He's
him.
just that's right. Yeah.
Right. So
They just say not great.
I
Bob
would Bob Benson and James Wolk. James Wolk. So
I was thinking about this
6'2".
the other day.
Yeah.
Would you want to be known as like? So that guy's obviously famous for like a very specific reason. Like I saw a video on Instagram of like the Jake from State Farm guy, and he's just Jake from State Farm now. And that's what he's going to be for the rest of his life. Like he can't act in anything else because he's always going to be. It's like Flo from the Progressive commercials. Like, would you be cool with that? I'm sure they make a ton of money, but
Well,
you're
Flo
only
was a
known as
stand-up
this one
comedian.
thing.
Flo was a stand-up comedian and actress, and I actually think she did pretty well. And ironically enough, Flo was in Mad Men early on.
She was somewhere. That's where it was.
Yep.
That's where I saw her.
Right. She
How
was
about
one
the
of
first
operators.
Jake? What about the first Jake from State Farm?
Or
That frumpy guy who just was like, I'm
Oh,
Jake
hey,
from State Farm.
he got the boot. Yeah.
I'll say this. And it's dangerous knowing State Farm's a sponsor. Is Jake from State Farm too jacked?
People are asking.
The Smedium? Did it have to be a Smedium?
He's
State
He
Farm's
might
giving
be-
him custom T-shirts.
yeah, he might be a little. I don't know what the cut. I'm not afraid of a small shirt, but I don't know if that's what I want out of my insurance guy. Like, wait, are you looking at my policy? Are you covering every angle? Are you keeping up to date with any of the stuff? Or are you
seem real busy.
are you just doing buys and tries all the time? Yeah, I didn't say anything. I've imagined that old Jimmy Wolk here has had a few people say "not great Bob" to him, and it's so fucking annoying. And I did not say anything. I didn't say anything.
I knew you would. Yeah.
I let it go. Now, if it were 1:30 and he were out with other guys and we were with our buddies, would somebody go up and be like, "Hey, how's the service?" And one of my friends scream, "Not great, Bob." You know, like, yeah, there's a good chance that could have happened. But no, this is the middle of the day. Just a guy was running his errands, waiting on a smoothie, just like I was. And I was like, "There's no way I'm going to do this." He's a really good actor, by the way. He nails that Bob Benson thing.
You just gave him a little head nod. You're like, I know the deal.
Hey, 6'2", huh? Nice, buddy.
Oh, man.
A lot of people wish they were 6'2". Okay, that'll do it for the podcast today. Thanks to Kyle and Steve. And make sure you subscribe to the Ryen Russillo podcast. Bringer Spotify, Sundays with Bill. We'll be back next Tuesday.